They're working on it.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Salem-Keizer Public Schools Budget Committee meeting. I'd like to call us to order this evening, and we'll start with our land acknowledgement. We are gathered here today on the land of the Kalapuya, who are represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. The relationship between the Kalapuya people and this land continues to be unbroken to this day, and we offer gratitude for the land for the generations present and past who have stewarded the land since time immemorial. We respectfully acknowledge and honor past, present, and future Native American and Indigenous students and staff of Salem-Keizer Public Schools. We invite you to join us in honoring these ancestral grounds and celebrating the resilience and strength of all Native American and Indigenous people. Thank you. All right, join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, and I will call out attendance for the record. Committee members Osvaldo Avila.
Present.
Ashley Carson Cottingham. Here. Satya Chandagiri.
Present.
Barbara Guillo. Karina Guzman Ortiz. Lisa Harnish, present. Marty Hyen.
Here.
Maria Hinos Pressy. Present. Nancy McMorris Addicks.
Present.
Ani Marchbanks. Laura Million.
Present.
Oscar Pereira.
Present.
Robert Salazar.
Present.
Patrick Schwab. And our amazing student representatives, Isaac McDonald.
Present.
Raylan Brenna.
Brennan.
Sorry. My apologies. Wonderful. And Karina is here. Thank you. All right. Well, I think at this time we have a presentation that we'd like to make before we jump in to our public comment.
And Christy, do you want to get us started, or?
I am going to let you just take the lead to thank a couple of our amazing people that have been with us. So do you?
Well, I didn't prepare anything in particular, but since we are not going to get to see you before you graduate, we wanted to be able to present you with these purple cords for ambition, creativity, and devotion. And thank you for all your dedication on this board. We really appreciate it, Raylan and Isaac.
Put your cords on. I'm sorry that wasn't at a business meeting, but I thought, well, you know, and June 13th, you'll already have walked across the stage.
It's all good.
I'll be at Isaac's graduation, so I'll make sure he's wearing it.
Good to know. I'll be handing Raylan's her diploma, so I'll make sure he's wearing it.
Nice.
I really do like the purple as well. Is it to match the chairs here?
Very comfy chairs.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, congratulations, both of you. How exciting. And thank you for all of your support and your participation and being active on the board. It's great. And having you a part of the budget committee, too.
Is it okay to ask what they're doing next?
I think it should
I don't
be.
mean like after you leave here tonight, but I mean like after high school.
What? Okay, I'm going to college.
And where would
I'm
that
going to college at Brown University.
At
Brown University.
Oh, my neighbor
Nice.
goes there.
Yeah.
I'm going to Shemeketa, and then I'm going to transfer to OSU and poli-sci.
Nice. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Oscar's online.
Oh, great. Oscar, welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for coming this evening. All right, well, I think we will go back to our regularly scheduled agenda. Now we'll move on to public comment for the 23-24 budget. A couple of things just to acknowledge. We've provided an opportunity for public comment by call-in and Zoom. And in person, and we've allotted 30 minutes to hear public comment. Right this moment, one person has signed up to comment in person, so hopefully we will be able to hear from everybody. And you will have 3 minutes, and we will have an electronic timer for you as well. And would just also ask that you be mindful of our ASL interpreters and our Spanish language interpreters who are here with us too. So we invite you to come on down.
The second person to give in-person public comment. Good job, Edie.
Yay! Thank you. And just for the record, if you could state your name, that'd be great.
My name's,
I think you have to
Yeah,
press down on the button too.
press down on
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that one is, okay.
Is it hot?
Oh, yay.
Can you hear me?
You have to hold it.
No, not today.
No.
I have to hold it the whole time.
It's already on, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Just put it closer to you, maybe.
All right. Okay? Better?
Yes.
There we
Doesn't
go.
sound like it, sorry. My name's Edie Buchanan. So I'm with ASCII SP, the classified union of Salem-Keizer School District. Today, I speak on behalf of not only support staff, but kids, parents, and our community. Our support staff work directly and indirectly with students and are suffering under the weight of understaffing, poverty wages, lack of training, loss of wages due to student cost injuries, in addition to no guarantee of a full-time position. Further, they've had to bear the burden of inaccurate job descriptions, little or no training, and barely an orientation while pushed into potentially dangerous classrooms. This negligence on behalf of the district has resulted in high attrition rates, low morale, and exponential increase in staff injuries. Even worse, classified job descriptions are outdated, many by 2 decades or more. And instead of updating them as we've requested, the district consistently relies on other duties as assigned to justify assigning work inappropriate to classifications. Despite their knowledge of these issues, the district initiated disgustingly high raises for administrators. These raises range from 15 to 41%, with one being high as $41,000 annually. Most of our folks do not even make $41,000 annually. It's hard to imagine that a component of these high raises was performance-based, considering the necessary tort claims and OSHA complaint we have filed. The Budget Committee must thoroughly review the appropriations and distributions of funds and ask yourself, is this money being spent as it should be, supporting staff and students at the ground level, not in the pockets of administrators? Some examples of misplaced priorities are departments like communication and curriculum balloon, while other critical departments such as payroll, benefits, and maintenance remain understaffed. Purchasing guidelines are so difficult, often staff spend hours trying to make what should be a simple purchase. Elementary and middle school library and media assistants are librarians now due to budget cuts in 2008. No offer of additional compensation was given, even though we have asked for years. School clerical staff have had their workloads increased, and no significant new FTE or compensation has been added. Our bus drivers, whom we rely on to transport children safely to school, have been underpaid for decades. Most of the schools do not have 8-hour jobs for critical support staff unless other jobs are pieced together to equal an 8-hour day. outdated equipment, especially in maintenance, creation of unnecessary administration jobs. Shocking as all this is, it has been happening for years while our union leaders and support staff are told there is just not enough money to pay you what you are worth, unless, of course, you're an administrator. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. All right. Well, before I turn things over to Superintendent Perry, I just wanted to, first of all, acknowledge all of the staff and also the Superintendent Perry for putting together such a very comprehensive budget. I know that this is not an easy task, and I know how hard you all work, and I just want to say thank you. And I also want to say thank you, particularly given it is such a precarious year. There are so many unknowns that we have, given the declining funds, with the COVID funds going away, for some of those federal funds going away. And also with the uncertainty with our legislature and knowing when they will actually be able to pass the budget. There are just so many moving parts, and I just want to say thank you for your time in putting that together. I also just want to acknowledge, this last week I was rereading the budget book with a particular emphasis on Superintendent Perry's presentation, and just acknowledging how hard and how uncertain the financial stability is, given all of those unknowns. And just really want to acknowledge the work that went into making sure that we were stepping down programs appropriately, and making sure that we could continue some of the great work that we've been able to do over the past few years. And also with acknowledgement that that's coming in the year prior to the really big step down after our federal funds do expire. So thank you, staff and Superintendent Perry, for your great work on that. I'm very confident, too, that we will be able to come up with a budget that will support all of the work of the district. I know we are all unified in wanting the absolute best for our children, and know that the education that they deserve is one that we want to offer. So with that, I just want to say thank you, Budget Committee, for your work. And asking some really good questions. Last week, we had some amazing questions and discussion on the different numbers and how they were put together. And I know Superintendent Perry has some information to share with us in reflection to that. So with that, I am going to turn things over to Superintendent Perry, and thank you so much.
All right, good evening, everyone. I just going to go ahead and put up the slides, and I kind of want to reorient us to kind of where we are financially as a first step, and kind of tell you what is still kind of unknown at this time, because there still is a lot unknown. So the first thing is the legislature is still in session, and there's really strong revenue forecast, but at the same time, there's still this time of uncertainty, because what we're hearing right now is that there's a worry that the budget will be adopted before the constitutional end of the session. So there's worry out there, and I think Lisa has heard that from the Early Learning Division as well. Which means that even though we've built the budget on 9.9, even though both the co-chairs and the governors have a 9.9 budget on the table, if the budget isn't adopted, we will start in July with our current state school fund payment, is the way I understand it, which is at 9.3. We're estimating, I think our estimation is about that's about $1.2 to $2 million per month, less than the proposed budget. What that means in moving forward, I haven't gotten my crystal ball out. Somebody asked me today if I've done that before, and I have not done that before. So I think it'd be great to do one more thing I've never done before. So that's making it still uncertain. There's lots of talk about how to get to a 10.3, but I haven't seen what that pathway is yet because there isn't enough votes to pass a budget. So that is creating some uncertainty and is creating us to step back and go, what about cash flow? For how long that could last and how long can we make it with cash flow? So Sarah's on it, but I promised her we could talk about that in a day or two. We are building with the 9.9 budget assumption, and then there's still some other floating bills. So one bill that we haven't talked much about is a bill at the Senate, and again, we don't have votes to get it through, but it was on the track for being approved. Senate Bill 489, the unemployment bill, our first estimation of that was $10 million because it's putting unemployment for people that are off in the summer. Now, there's been some amendments, and we haven't taken the time to cost them yet because there's just too many swirling bills. So it just puts us in that position of a lot of uncertainty at this time. But I do want to go back to a statement I made in the budget message. On whatever day that was, I gave that message the beginning of May, that even with restrictions on spending and strategic realignment and reduction of FTE, I still do not believe this budget will meet the financial goals of the district. And I'm growing more worried about that by the day. So we've done some things like if there's some district level positions, freeze hiring. We're going back to the drawing board on should there be some reductions. Because we don't want to set up a scenario where we have to do mid-year cuts. We want to be able to, however we start in August, be able to determine, and go through the full year. So just kind of to show the picture for next year, here is what the graph looks like for next year. This is assuming the 9.9. It's assuming a little bit of underspending that you can get through the year with some underspending. So the black line is our ending fund balance. So you'll see that projection 22-23 forecast of 77 million in the ending fund balance, which translates to beginning fund balance in your proposed budget. If we don't meet any more underspending than what's estimated here, which is I think around 5%, that would put us at a 17 million ending fund balance, which rolls up into the proposed budget for beginning fund balance. If all things in this forecast are true, you are looking next year at a proposed budget that presents to you 54 million in reductions, which is a really hard place to be. So as the picture is getting clearer, I think it's my job to begin doing more within the budgeting process to help us with that. So again, though, based on 9.9, so if more dollars come in, it helps close the gap, and we are still at the bargaining table with both associations like Edie presented during public comment. So I just thought it's important to frame whatever decisions you make, because I'm super worried about if you add FTE to this budget, it only makes that gap bigger. The cuts we should make now, if there's any cuts on the table at the district level, should be to close the gap and shouldn't be converted to FTE, because you will cut that next year. So that's what I want to prevent you from having to do next year. We did come back, as we promised, to talk a little bit about class size number and some of the things you requested of me. So first of all, one of the things as we really look at class size, I want to shift it back to a conversation around staffing ratio rather than class size, because you're always going to have bubbles in the system. So the best thing as a budget committee is to think about the staffing ratio. And right now our staffing ratio at elementary is at about 24.2 when you just do straight staffing ratio. So pre-pandemic, it's actually lower than we were pre-pandemic as far as a little bit in that staffing ratio because of the ESSER, because of some of the strategies in SIA. When ESSER goes away, though, there's a risk that that's not true anymore next year. And how do you balance that budget to keep that consistent class size ratio. And within a ratio, of course, you're always going to have some that are lower. All those classrooms we talked about at 18, there's also some classrooms over 30, which we don't love either, and try to put some extra supports there. But if you just wanted to lower it by one, K-5, you're talking about looking at my notes here, I think it's over $2.8 million to lower by one. And what that equates to is still some classrooms at 18 to 20 and some that will be at 30, because that's just how the ratio and staffing works. And that does not count the additions of things like PE and music to help with teacher preparation time. So by one, you're probably talking about $3.1 to $3.2 million. If you wanted to make class size the highest priority in your planning, which there's lots of things at risk in that, the place to really look is probably to that integrated plan. But then you're doing some trade-offs. So right now, you could do 2.4 in social, emotional, and behavioral health, but that's counselors, social workers. You could do 2 million in FTE, which are classified FTE for language support, our native language specialists. It's like all the trade-offs are super hard. There's things in that integrated plan like extracurricular activities, athletics, music, et cetera, at 1.4, things that are important. We've already reduced that athletics amount quite a bit, which is why we're reinitiating the pay-to-play fees. So we're already doing some downsizing and trade-offs within that integrated plan. And ideally, over time, with strong mental health support, you could reduce the number of mental health supports. But it's, again, a super big trade-off right now. If you were looking in the Gen Fund budget, you'd want to do great big program swaths. What I would recommend is if we're going to do, like, we'll already initiate some additional district level, where can we stop, where can we not hire, to help us with closing the gap. So your strategy then has to be to do something like, and again, I didn't put these on a slide because I didn't want anybody to think we'd made any decision about cutting, but something like EDGE is about a $10 million program right now for us. Is that the right program for us? Will those kids come back if you shut that program down? The equity office is about, 566,000 is all in the equity office out of the Gen Fund. Middle school athletics, 1.66. We could take out a few administrative positions, but that will be under $1 million that we could come up with. The computer rotation, one-time dollars, $2 million. So there's places to go, but you have to make some really strategic decisions about what's the trade-off for those, and is that the right move to make at this time if class size becomes the highest priority. And what you heard from Edie is not, you heard multiple priorities, and that's exactly what we're facing as well. I think when they did the library media reductions, it was probably about a 50 FTE reduction during that time, Nancy, because it was one licensed educator at every elementary school at the time. So it was a great big program shift in order to save other things. If we weren't looking at this financial picture, I think there would be some ways to achieve a staffing decrease by maybe 1 or 2, maybe, at the elementary level. So I'm only talking, about $3 million at the elementary level. Nancy, question?
I have a question and a comment. I guess I could turn them all into questions.
Okay.
How about that? But you just listed a bunch of things, and I wasn't writing fast enough. You talked about the equity office at like somewhere in the 500,000 range, and then you went to computer rotation at 2 million, and you said something in between. What was that?
Oh, I said you could get to a few administrative positions, but they'll barely add up to $1 million,
Okay.
if that.
So in the issue of class size or staffing ratios, I just want to clarify if some of my assumptions are accurate.
Okay.
So in the past, there has been some money that the budget sets aside in order to do some work around what happens in the fall that we can't predict. You know, School A has an influx of 7-year-old boys, and all of a sudden, School X has way too many second graders. And so you have some money to either add a classroom if you have space and there's enough, or to add aid time or whatever. Is that
Yeah.
still a thing? And
Yep, it comes in two places. One is, at this point in the year, we don't give out all of our elementary, middle, or high school staffing. We save a little bit back, because as we gear up to the school year, we give a lot of that out just for that reason. And I think I think I said it last time, we have about a 15% mobility rate among our schools. So even if you start, you do another look at school enrollment the third week of September. So that's one place. And then we build in reserve FTE as well. That is budgeted under 1111 elementary. We were at about 20, and I think we've taken it down to 10 for our elementary reserves. So that's exactly right. And then there's some reserve dollars in classified staffing that are for, again, that exact same thing. So you end up with a classroom in October that's over 30. You can't split it up for whatever reason, or it doesn't make sense to based on how the school is structured, and you add classified support to it at that point. And we start we start now, but we start the first week in August, and we have a weekly routine where we look at where are we at with enrollment,
so just to follow up on that, because it's all unpredictable to some extent, who shows up in the fall. I've been having conversations with parents, just happened to have run into people who have kindergartners in big classes. And so I asked the question specifically, like, if we dedicated to making sure that all the kindergarten classes went down by one. So you're going from your kid's 29 class to 28, versus if we dedicated classified to those big K2 classes to make sure that we had 2 adults in the room all the time. And they were all oh my gosh, I would much rather have 2 adults in the room than drop from 29 to 28. How is that reserve, and is any of that money dedicated to full-time classified in those big K2 classes?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Yes, and I can't tell you how many hours a day. And it would depend on the classroom. But that is what that we already have a certain amount of classified FTE that we give out, and then we have this reserve pot of classified FTE for just that reason.
Okay, thank you.
As a follow-up to that, though, is that a decision, for example, that schools, principals, or building principals, administrators decide on, kind of shifting that classified time and where it goes, or does that come from district office?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah.
Great questions. Yes.
Thank you. So I had a different question on the ending fund balance. As you see, the number is going down. What should be, if it goes down too much, will it affect our credit rating and to take care of planned activities. Like when COVID came, that was a big shock wave for all of us. And fortunately, we had a good ending fund balance, which allowed us to take care of some steps we had to take care. So what would be a healthy ending fund balance without jeopardizing the whole operation in case we run into some kind of crisis?
Your financial policy says 7 to 10%, and this is at just under 3, if all those things come true there.
So this is, this 52, what you're showing will be less than 3?
Well, the 52 is less than 0.
Yeah, that's a negative. You should look at the 17 on going back to that graph. The 17.
17, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the follow-up question is, that's a critical thing to keep in mind, because with such unpredictability, what would it, so if you want to protect that at a decent number, like say 7 to 10%, what should we be doing? Because if the budget gets approved in state, then we can always come back for an interim budget and adjust it.
Correct. What this budget does is, so first of all, I think the number would be about close to about 40 million, would be about that 7 to 10%. But what this budget does is gives the spending authority for and the appropriations for 9.9 billion in state school fund and how that rolls through the system. So that's what it does. At the same time, you can, I will already be going into very conservative, how do we think about cuts within this still, which if approved gives me all that authority to make cuts still. And you still have to do the budget adoption as a board. If the number comes in higher and we just choose to spend it, then I bring it at a certain level. You would need to bring it as an supplemental budget to the board. So you can always change it.
Laura.
Just a couple of questions.
Oh, is there somebody else? Go ahead.
Yep.
We'll go to Laura, and then we'll go to Ashley.
Okay, right, very good. So.
You pull your mic down just a little bit. Thank you.
Sorry.
I can hear you.
Can you
but
hear me, guys?
I can.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that. So a question, I know after our meeting last week, there was an article out in OPB about the surge in income at the state level, which what I'm understanding you're telling me is not a guarantee it'll make it down to the education.
Correct.
Even though that's one of Tina Kotek's priorities, it doesn't mean that it will actually make it to. So you're going with a conservative approach. I'm assuming that because of this flush budget that we're going to have for the next 2 years at the state level, that her other demands or her other wishes, I shouldn't say demands, of the early learning, which was at 120 million, is that right, Christine?
That was the early literacy.
Early reading, yes. Can some of those funds be allocated towards things like the librarians, like Ashley was referring to, or for more FTE at the K through third level to provide additional instruction to students at K through 3 for that early reading program?
Yeah, so it could be used as long as it's an evidence-based practice and tied to the literacy framework. So an example might be a reading specialist could be added, because that would, there is some research about high-dose tutoring, and you could get some tutoring out of that. So some of it can be based on, it has to be research-based.
Okay.
Looking to the literacy experts behind me who've been reading that bill. And we think it's going to be about, if that comes through, it'll be about 3.5 million.
Okay, and is that built, that's not built into this
That
budget
is not
yet?
built into the budget yet.
Okay. And that could be additional resources where you would meet with the board mid-year and say, hey, we got this
Yep.
additional funding, And then that can be allocated potentially to some of those other wish lists that we were talking about at last week's meeting. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And the other thing with that literacy plan, Laura, is that you have bill, the way it reads now, you need to bring your literacy plan forward to the board. So not only would they see it in terms of budget, they'd actually see the plan, just like we did with the integrated plan.
Perfect, okay, gotcha. So then if you find that the budget does get passed at the state level and that some more additional funds come to the schools themselves, you will meet with the board mid-year again to potentially discuss additional use of these funds that come in above your $9.9 million budget. Is that?
I don't know if it will require a specific supplemental budget process, because that's a legally required certain amount of appropriations, but the general practice, and it won't be me, would be that you'd at least alert the board to, it might be through, if it were through bargaining, it might be through an executive session, but there would be ways to notify the board of what that would look like.
Speaking of bargaining, now I know you guys are still in negotiations with the union. And you have told me that is built in, what you estimate you think the final number is actually built into this budget. Is it yes or no?
We have built in, because we can't build in a final number, because then that wouldn't be good faith bargaining.
Right.
So we have built in a holding number, which is 2.5% on, and I think the holding number, which is just a placeholder, that's why I'm thinking about it, is about $8 million. And I'm not sure that will, well, I don't want to comment about bargaining. Yeah, thank you.
Understood, yeah. So I guess then, if I was to make a proposal, I would like to see some funds dedicated, especially if you get additional funds, so that we are continuing to move forward. If those additional funds come in, that the school knows where the goals are for this, for the children to close those educational gaps and things of that nature. I would propose that there's $2 million then that's dedicated to reducing the class sizes, and it's the K through 12. That since you're going to be getting those additional funds, most likely for the early reading, that would help for the librarian piece of closing that gap there. And also meeting, I think Skia also mentioned needing the librarians back at the elementary level. It would marry well with the early reading program. And then I think that there was also mention of continued upgrades to the safety of the schools, another $1 million for the safety, whether it's the film that's added for privacy, things of that nature. So I just send it back for discussion.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. And Ashley, I'm going to take your question.
A couple of things. I wanted to talk a little bit about the instructional staff development, function 2240. I just wanted to learn a little bit more. It looks like there's about 51.75 FTE in that fund with 43.5 licensed teachers. And so just wanted to get a sense of, if we're looking to shift more FTE to reduce class size in K through 2, which we've been discussing that. I don't know if that's the will of the board. I'm just wondering if that might be a place to look. And so want to get a sense of what those folks are doing, where they sit. Do they sit in the school, embedded in the school? Are they at an administrative level? I don't know what they all do.
Yeah. Did you say 2240 or 20?
22. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you broke up. Yes.
2240.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So 2240 is a variety of positions, but the bulk of the positions are like at the school-based instructional mentor. So this is somebody on the ground in the school. They can do staff development. They can, in some schools, they do. Olga was telling me later, they do take small groups, which is not exactly what I said last week. Sometimes they can help on the behavior intervention side as well, even though we have a behavior specialist. There's also some district level programs, so those are centralized positions. And then we also have some of the behavior intervention trainers, and these are centralized positions that are dispatched to schools. So we will have a classroom with or a school that has some escalated behavior, and the behavior intervention trainers go in to help coach and settle and retrain kids and staff around a particular student need. So that's the bulk of what is in 2240. I would say that 246. There's only about 7 that are centralized, like curriculum, PAs, program assistants in there. The rest are out in schools, and on the behavior trainer, we know the needs of behavior right now.
Sorry, so there's curriculum.
Yeah, there's
in-
about 6 curriculum positions there. So like the people that are working on the adoptions right now, the middle school language arts, social studies adoption, that's what some of the work that the curriculum PAs do.
And then the 2210, the improvement of instructional services is different
Correct.
Then-
Yep.
than the school-based instructional mentors that are in the schools already.
Yep. So the 2210 is where we had those district level mentors for new teacher mentoring. In the budget process, we said we just don't have enough because of the number of new staff. So those were actually reduced out of there. That's why that number has gone down. You have some additional program assistance in that. And this is also where you have, I'm trying to think what else is in this. I think your curriculum directors are here as well that oversee that department. Your PD coordinator, those sorts of positions are in that 2210. Those two functions look a little close. 2210 is more school-based supports, 2240 is more school-based, 2210 is more the district level.
Okay, thank you. And then just from follow up from last week on the planned, what is it called? Like capital projects or, I remember the page, I think it's 177.
Yeah, I'm
was
gonna pass to Bob on the planned capital preventative and deferred maintenance projects. I think that was the one. Is that the one you're thinking about?
That is.
Yep. And then also, Bob, while you're doing that, would you talk about kind of some estimates around cost of air and also secure vestibules was the other question from last time.
And Bob, as you're getting your stuff ready, I just wanted to acknowledge that Barbara Gio is on the call today with us by phone. So, thank you, Bob.
Ashley, what was the specific question on the capital project fund?
Oh, I had asked last time for a list of the projects or like just a high level run through of what is planned for that $8 million and whether any of it relates to safety, because that was so much of our conversation last week.
Okay, so on page 173, I believe that's where you have the 8 million there. Is the in the capital outlay 520. Just playing catch up here in the budget book. Give me one second.
In my book, it's page 174. And if you don't have, we can come back. I just am trying to get a sense of like, where does money come if a safety issue pops up during the year? I know we talked last time about that in sort of the safety or security budget, there's not flexible money there to invest in something to secure a school, if I'm understanding. So if we're asking for something like film on the windows, where would that come out of our budget? And would that be built into preventive and deferred maintenance, or would that be somewhere else that we'd be looking?
So the answer is it depends. Specifically with the deferred maintenance fund, a lot of that is allocated towards ongoing turf replacements.
Yeah. So the list for summer, I've pulled it up, is we have a partial roof replacement at a school. We have an office area remodel. We have several ball fields that need replaced. We have a gym floor, auditorium speakers, tennis courts. So those are some preventative and deferred maintenance. One of the things we're looking at, two particular things right now that would either come out of this fund and which might need to be deferred, is film on windows for heat. And then is there a safety or security issue? So either 418 special capital projects or 419 preventative and deferred maintenance, either one of those. And we're looking at both of those currently as we speak, and then we'll come up with to determine where's the right funding plan for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so, sorry, I just want to make sure I understand. So are you saying the district would be thinking about whether window film is needed for safety or heat reasons, and it could fit within the existing budget potentially? Is that what I'm taking away?
Yes. In that 418 or 419, as long as we figured out the right sizing for the project. So we're doing some, and I don't know that film is a security thing, although it's an more inexpensive than a vestibule, because if a vestibule, those secure vestibules for a school are about between $200,000 and $700,000, depending on the school. But yes, we're trying to work through to think about is heating. We've done a pilot at one school around heating and some of those films. But yes, it would be 418 or 419, and we'd have to reshuffle for other things.
When you say 418 or 419, or is that a number in my budget book?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's in the capital projects fund.
I'm in that projects fund and I don't.
Page 172 and 174.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank
I got
you.
lost.
Yep.
I
Okay,
still don't see
so
a
I have
418.
seen, I saw Laura's hand, and then I saw Marty's hand. Ashley, your hand is still up? Okay, thank you. So Laura and then Marty.
So I'm still unclear. You said you're thinking about doing the film. Are you doing it or are you not doing it? And how do you prioritize? You know, I guess in my mind, when I hear you're going to upgrade the fields over the heating and safety of the children, kind of seems, it just doesn't fit into my brain. Maybe you could explain the logic for me so I can understand better.
Well, the fields is a great example of the turf fields have a certain life expectancy. And if you don't replace them, you don't play on them because they're not safe to play on. So they're in that. The film and the heat issue, we've been trying to do some test runs of does it make a difference? Because you don't want to put film on windows and have it not make a difference in the heat and spend the dollars. So we've done an initial run at one school to see would this make a difference in the school. Some initial thinking is it might, so that's why we would shift. But a lot of those, even the fields and things, are safety reasons as well, yeah.
And so have you had the results back from this particular school that you've installed the film in?
We're still working on it.
You're still
yeah.
working on that.
That's a project on Bob's list.
The other question I did have, going back to the last week's meeting, Ashley had brought up HVAC in some of the schools is missing. How does that process work? Does the school decide to do a bond and reach out and say, hey, we need a bond to upgrade the schools for the HVAC system. Does the board direct? Does the budget committee direct? I mean, how does that process to get that ball rolling work?
So the way that getting that ball rolling works is the best practice is to start with the facilities committee, and which is usually directed by the board, citizen-based, probably has some board members on it, and a public meeting. And what you do as a district, you're required by statute to present a long-range facilities plan, and you come in with a plan that is generally often more than what a community might say they wanted to afford. And then you have the facilities committee kind of vet the plan and say, yes, we think this, not this. Here's what we think would be best for kids. Here's what we think the community might support. Then that is passed to the school board. A school board is the governing body that can initiate any sort of capital funding request through an election. And I think the goal is, because we're starting to wrap up the bond, that they begin that facilities committee process this next school year. And one thing we've done, because we could pay for this with ESSER, is we've initiated that HVAC assessment to say, okay, what's the first look at where could we, for a reasonable amount of money, add air, what HVAC systems are old and need to be upgraded anyway, which we did upgrades to HVAC in this last bond. We just didn't add cooling everywhere. We chose it at some places. I think McKay is one that we added the cooling to. But cooling is usually about a $5 to $7 million project in an elementary school, and it just goes up exponentially to middle and high.
Okay. And then my last question, Edie had mentioned substantial raises for admin staff. What was the logic behind, and I don't know that occurred, I don't know I didn't look at the paperwork, but what was the logic behind doing that last year and then coming in at a 2.5% increase proposed this year for the teachers who are our frontline staff with these students?
Yeah, we did a salary adjustment across the board for classified, licensed, and administrators. And we did it based on what the comparables were in the field. And classified, I'll speak just directly to that, we bumped them up a range, which was about 5%. And then I think we added, I can't remember what we added as a cost of living on top of that. But so I think we spent about, okay, I won't get the numbers right, but we did that across all groups, trying to get people within a fair market wage compared to our comparables, which is why then we've done that salary comp study because the classified group is the hardest to compare between districts. Everyone has different classifications. And so right now, I think like the administrators, most are below comparables, but closer, much closer to the comparables. Classified, there's some that are, some that aren't. Licensed is within the range of the comparables around us. And so we did that last fall because we were seeing all the way around us that people were, all of our salaries were falling behind, and we thought it was really important. So then we've added that compensation study to get to what should we give at this bargaining, because we want to be competitive with our surrounding districts. So we did it across all groups.
Thank you. Thank you. And Marty?
Yes, thank you. So from what I'm understanding then, the film is for heat, is to keep the heat in or keep the sun out so it doesn't get so hot. And I'm curious if we've explored the type of film. I think I read about it a couple of years ago. I think I had forwarded it to the district. It's a film that is either bullet resistant or bulletproof for the vestibules or the doors, because since there's no SROs or good people with a firearm, somebody can take a gun and shoot through the glass. So have we explored that in looking at the film?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So we're, as part of looking at, when Barbara raised the issue around film as security, what you see on the outside of this building at LPC, that's not a security aspect. That's decorative in nature. So yes, we did start looking at film for both the heat reduction and the security aspect. Right now, what we're learning is that they're two separate things. So you can have one or the other. We're continuing our research to see if we can find combined and achieve both goals with one product.
Right, which would be the more affordable option. Is there also the option of using both on certain access points?
There's two sides to the bank.
Yeah, if you put it on the outside, you have to run through a permitting process. That's something that we'll look into, Marty. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
For the vestibules, the heat wouldn't be as much of a deal as it would be like on the classroom windows. So we could use different products in different areas.
Right, yeah, for the doors and vestibules, the safety option is more important, and the heat for the classrooms, I would say.
All right, any other questions? Yes, Robert?
Yes, if we could go back just a little bit to the classified pay, I'm thinking that the compensation for them should be a priority, because not only are we in competition with other districts, we're in competition with the general employment in general, because they are people that will have skills and that will be possibly more advantageous for them to pursue other fields if they don't feel they're getting appropriate compensation. So I would really, stress that. The others, I think are important also, but they are more comparable with the districts that we've already, looked at and studied. So going forward, especially when we're looking at some of our dual language people, they are, very sought after. Thank you.
Yeah, and living in providing education in the state capital, we also are in competition with state jobs across multiple of our classifications, not just classified.
Sure. So, Laura?
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to revise my proposal, sorry about that, because it sounds like the early reading will possibly bring us some librarians, that you guys are already looking into the film for different purposes, and it's built into this budget. So I would like to just propose that we allocate $1 million to reducing the class sizes from K through second.
Can I make, I just want to make one correction, though. I don't know that the librarians would count under the early literacy, because I don't know, and I think I'm saying this I so appreciate a good school librarian at the elementary level, but I don't think it will count as funding under early literacy, because they're not providing reading instruction, even though they're providing love of books and all of that. So I just want to be sure that I'm careful about that piece.
Sure.
Thank you.
And that legislation is not included in this budget.
No.
Correct.
So then $1 million, so then I'll revise that. So then another $1 million for the librarians for the elementary schools to help expand, and that would marry up with the early reading program. So we have quality books with the librarian when the program gets implemented.
So
And I've had my hand up too.
Pardon, what was that, Ashley?
I've had my hand up for a while as well.
Okay, I apologize. It's hard to, I apologize for my inability to see all the parts and pieces. As we are getting to different ideas, I want to make sure that we're doing that in a holistic way. And I'm sort of thinking about this time as us providing some comment and input on what we have heard today and in reflection from last week. So when we get to more the proposal for amendments to and recommended, I'd like to hang on to that for just a little bit. And I don't know if it was Nancy or Ashley who was first.
I just have a very quick question, Ashley.
Go for it.
Of Laura. Am I understanding you that you were taking the money for the early literacy program that hasn't been passed yet by the legislature, and counting on that money coming, so reallocating that money into other things in the budget. Is that what I hear you saying?
No, actually, Christy corrected. I was hoping it could be used for librarians, that would be a source of funding, but that is not necessarily true, so.
So
yeah.
where are you taking this money from?
I would propose it comes from the EDGE program.
So let's come back to that, because that is a true recommendation. I want to come back to Ashley's question, and then we'll move into other options. Ashley?
Well, I had a motion as well that
Okay.
I think could potentially be maybe an amendment to Laura's quasi motion.
Okay, great. All right.
Which would be that instead of sort of dipping into reserves or looking for additional funding sources that may or may not have been passed, I would like to, well, I don't know if I make the motion or if, I guess my motion would be to have the district look again through general fund expenditures at teaching positions and other positions and allocate approximately 1.5 million into the classrooms. And I don't want to specify which positions or where they should go, because I think the district are truly the experts on allocating those resources where they're truly the most needed. And that's based on what it feels is an important issue for this budget committee to reduce class size and move teachers into buildings. So that would be my motion, if I'm making a motion, but you tell me, Chair.
Well, I suppose we could start with that motion. If we wanted to start there, or do we want to maybe look at the? Yeah, Satya, yes.
The question I have is, can there be a pool of money that can be used as a flexible fund? We can allocate not connected to any position, which either at the school level or they can use it depending on the local needs. That way, keeping up with the equity lens. And if a school may need teaching positions, or school may need a classified position, or may need some high-dose tutoring, but it allows the flexibility at a local level rather than being prescriptive. Is that possible by this kind of budgeting?
Well, I think you have to think about scale, and what's that amount per school that you would give, and then what does that mean across 65 schools plus all of the Roberts programs, which might need more. So I haven't really thought about it. They do have some funds within their budget. For example, we budget for some tutors at some schools. So I don't have a really good off-the-cuff answer.
Can we at least start with some of the schools, let's say Title I schools? Because giving them local control, depending on their need, and then they can flexibly use that budget and of course justify it within your broad parameters so that they can't be spending on.
So the Title I schools already have that flexibility because they get federal title dollars.
Okay.
And they build a title plan in order to determine how they want to spend that. Some of them spend it even on parent education because that's a component
That's what I was thinking.
of it.
Parent
So it's
education.
required, there's a certain amount that's required of your title funds to spend on parent education. So that's there already. And if you can't add to the other schools that aren't title, because if you do that, you have to add to title or you're supplanting. And we have we have about 30 title schools. So it's not a small number because almost all of them, our schools are title.
I was thinking more like giving the principal level a little bit more local control of how to use that pool of money at school level where in a given school, they may want to increase the classified staff, or in a given school, they may want to have an after-school tutoring, or so, but having that flexibility allows them to adjust according to the need. Of course, they will fall within certain parameter. That's the kind of thing I was thinking of, and that also empowers the school level planning. Would that be a possibility somewhere, rather than saying cut this and put there and things like that?
Sometimes that's a possibility because the district is held accountable for things like comparability and the types of service. So if you have 10 of your title schools that do one thing, are you going to be comparable with it? So there's a lot of those sorts of moving pieces. I would just have to think it through a little differently.
The second piece of the question is, we have SK Online and Edge, both program. Is there a way to combine both and just have one system which gives flexibility for the student level, that if they want to take a few courses in SK Online and rest in person, and can that save us some money by combining these two rather than holding them with Edge as a separate and SK Online?
We're having that conversation as, is there any efficiency we can do? The thing about SK Online that is a little different than Edge is we have a lot of kids that want to do either some credit recovery or they'll want to take a class so they have more room in their home high school for some other classes they want. So, but we are definitely talking about all those possibilities.
Will that save us some money if we just say have SK Online and merge it with Edge and then scale it up? Or have one or the other? Because SK Online is also available and Edge is also available. SK Online gives a little bit more flexibility, where they can do like a hybrid in class and thing. Whereas Edge is fixed, right? You either be Edge or not.
No, we have an Edge independent, so we have some kids taking partial. And we're trying to look at, they're kind of serve different purposes. And we just have to look at who are the kids, what need is it serving? They're both have a lot of interest. So who are the kids, what need are they serving, and is it the right, do we have the right efficiencies within that to serve the most kids possible?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, it's really hard to hear people that don't have their microphone close to their face when you're remote.
Thank you, Marty, for catching that. Really appreciate it.
Did you hear me?
I couldn't hear what you said, Satya, and I also had a hard time hearing Eddie because she wasn't pushing the button during her testimony. But
I was asking that I was asking a question about SK Online and Edge. If there is a way to combine them and give that flexibility to student where they can take both, or combine them, will that bring down some cost saving? And also give flexibility for student to be in person and also take advantage of SK Online so they can work on their own pace. Will that bring down some cost? And can that help? That's the question I asked.
Thank you, Satya. And Laura, you had your hand up again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
I
Marty.
did. Thank you. And that's a great question, Satya. That was an excellent observation. I just had a quick question, Ashley. On the 1.5 million, were you thinking just across all grade levels or just focusing on elementary for that? And would it be funds that at the district level they would decide, or something like Satya said, where it would go down to the principals to be distributed as needed? On your your motion?
I think because I feel the district knows where we need additional classroom educators, they're in the best position to determine. I just would leave that up to the superintendent and her team. But I do think we should have a strong emphasis on ensuring as many of our licensed educators are in the classroom as possible. So it just means pulling through one more time, even though I know they've already done this and been really creative and thoughtful for additional positions to move back out into the classrooms.
And that's for all grades, is that correct?
Yeah, I would say it would be up to them because I have heard a lot from the district about the challenges in middle school as well as our early, K through 2. I mean, we want to give them as much support as possible, but I also know there's a lot of behavioral challenges at the middle school level where the class sizes are even larger.
Gotcha. Well, I can support that proposal, actually. I think it's a good one.
So thank you for that. And from a point of order point of view, I'm hoping that we can end our discussion period and then we can move into the motions because I think that'll make it a little bit easier and cleaner. And I also noticed that I think Nancy had her hand up and then Karina.
I just have a question for Ashley, because I just did the math on 1.5 million, and I looked just at elementary schools, so I just heard you say elementary or middle schools, and when I looked at elementary schools, which I think we have around 50 elementary schools, 40-something.
44.
Oh, 44. I'm out of touch. Anyway, I divided it by 50 because that was easier math. And it gave $30,000 per school, which doesn't, my math is bad. I used a calculator.
Yeah, there's in my thinking or motion or whatever, the idea or proposal, it would definitely not be evenly distributed. It'd be looking for 1.5 million in positions and moving those positions from some more centralized functions out into schools where the need is the greatest.
I see. So a school that had a lot of kids show up could get a position, and a school that didn't have them wouldn't get it. So it wouldn't be evenly distributed. It would go according to need. That helps me to understand it. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. And Karina.
I was curious about function 2240 again, and I kind of missed a little bit, which is on page 100, a little bit of the different roles within that. But I guess hearing, and connecting this with Ashley's suggestion of, and highlighting, right, the need to pull, whether it's licensed or classified, that is majority licensed staff. So is that a pool, for example, the district pulls licensed staff to support in the classroom, say for an entire year or an as needed basis, or where, which different functions maybe can we kind of reference from the book that the district would pull or lean on or shift to using different folks who are already within the system.
And keeping in mind, I think that 1.5 million is around 15 fully loaded teachers or less.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm meaning is find 15 FTE, whether licensed or classified, and move to support the classrooms that are the highest need sort of concept. So it wouldn't have to come from one particular fund, but if you could shave off 5 from the fund Karina's pointing out right now, or 3, or, and I know you've already probably done this exercise, but just feels like there's a really strong desire to make sure the classrooms are getting every last bit they can.
Can I ask?
Yes.
So, this is just a question for me to understand, please. So if we fix a budget like this, and if the local classroom teachers and staff feel a need halfway through, what mechanism they will have to have a local control? Or, if there's a school with, let's say there are children from African American community, and we have a teacher position from an African American black teacher, but may not be connected to that school. So how do we understand in this budget process whether the teachers will follow the students' cohort, or they could be in some other school and the students may be somewhere else?
Well, you're giving 2 different examples. So one is we have a routine around staffing, and we look at numbers and we look at need, and the way the teacher information goes from teacher to principal to district. So that's one issue. A certain teacher following a group of kids, that is a fairly significantly governed by our collective bargaining agreement, and we wouldn't ever take a teacher and say, you're going to move over here to this school based on your race or ethnicity, whether or not they were interested in that. But if we do administrative transfers, it is based on what is in our collective bargaining agreement.
But let's say if you have two-way dual language, that 50-50, will those teachers follow the cohort of student is what I'm trying to understand.
Oh, for language,
Yeah, language
that's
is
a
the
little
one.
different, but they don't follow the cohort. But in our dual expansion schools, we go in and decide, okay, now we're moving to first grade dual language. We need 2 teachers. If there aren't 2 teachers there that are bilingual, then we would shift teachers or hire based on language skill and based on the needs of the others. So, and we have a very robust administrative transfer process for a need like language, different than just, we don't have it based on race. We wouldn't do that.
So when the kids, they will follow the kids next year, there will be similar cohort get added? Suppose these kids go to 3rd grade.
Yes,
So there will
yes,
be a 3rd grade
yes.
also dual language certified
Yep.
teachers will get added. Okay.
Yes, but I will tell you, given the budget scenario, I think you should think carefully about what are the savings now, because we're worried already about dual language expansion after next year. We believe we've got the budget for next year, but we are worried, can we add the last schools we want to add in the following years based on what we're seeing with the budget. So I think there are some initiatives that are at risk moving forward, and there'll be programs at risk moving forward in subsequent budget years. So it should all be thought about.
Yes, Karina.
I just wanted to kind of go back to the question that I had made, which I wasn't necessarily clear on. I think there was other ideas, important ideas, but on 2240, for example, and taking on the bargaining agreements, which I would imagine, the folks lined here under 2240 are, also fall within that. But what does that look like? For example, if we have, here it says 43, FTE, and do they get assigned to schools or buildings or classrooms? And what does it take for that? How flexible is that number? And are there other functions, for example, that have a sense of flexibility to meet this need, right? To meet, okay, this school has, substantial needs and, whether it's behavior or language or whatnot.
So let's think about just a process versus, so it's not exactly your question, but what you're asking us to do is to go back into the budget to find $1.5 million that can be reallocated into 1111 elementary education. That's what you're asking us to do. And so we will determine where within the budget we'll shift resources to put it into 1111, the function 1111 elementary instruction. If that comes from 2240 or 2210, if it comes from there and it comes from licensed educators, those positions are cut. But we owe them a job. So we then put them we meet with them and say, hey, your position is going to be eliminated, and here's how the administrative transfer works. So in many, many cases, those people will have jobs out in a classroom. It just won't be the same jobs they have now, as long as there's enough position. Did that answer it?
Yeah, and I guess I'm curious, for example, because I guess thinking, my question is coming more so what would it take to keep, say, this proposed budget? And so how much flexibility is there? So for example, if those folks have their jobs, what is the possibility to do a 1-year assignment in a classroom for example, or in a school, where maybe they keep their like, I don't know, I'm just throwing out ideas, right? Maybe they keep their current compensation and don't lose that job, but responding to an immediate need. And I'm thinking of it from what does it take to perhaps leave numbers as are, but like, I don't understand necessarily the flexibility for those positions. And so that's what I'm curious about. And the district's, flexibility on reassigning folks and what it takes.
Yeah, there's two different answers to that. One is if they're budgeted in a way that isn't technically budgeted to be direct support to classrooms. We can't, legally from a budget standpoint, we shouldn't have just 10 FTE that are in the support side that are performing work in the instruction side. So that's just technically from a budget standpoint. But the other part of it is we are, I think we would, without thinking it totally through, I think we would run into some challenges with what their job says they're supposed to do versus what we're, so the better method is to reduce positions, shift them into 1111 function, because you're not going to add them back next year. So that's not a 1 year, given the 54 million, it's not a
Right,
1 year.
there's that piece.
Yeah, so the hope of that, but I love that idea.
It's just very creative.
Yeah.
We're all wanting to make this
creative.
work. So Nancy and then Robert.
I just want to be clear about this 2240 we keep talking about. So it's my understanding that as a result of COVID, we have more students behind than we had students behind before. So if I'm a classroom teacher, what I'm being asked to do to get kids on grade level is greater
Correct.
than it used to be.
Correct.
And these people in 2240 are my help. When I say, I'm stuck here, I'm not reaching, I'm really good at reaching Isaac and Laura, but these other kids, I seem to not be able to reach them, and I need help. And these people are the ones who can come into my classroom and help me figure out how I reach these kids. So by taking those people away from teachers, you're making the job of a teacher greater. And you're not taking away that responsibility to the teacher. You're dumping more of it on the teacher. And I don't know what the climate is now, but when I was on school board, there was a big push to label classrooms as good or bad based on those achievement levels. And if you were in a classroom with really tough kids who have a whole lot less supports at home, et cetera, then your classroom, your school, your teaching gets labeled as bad, and you're pulling the help from those teachers at a time when we shouldn't be pulling that help. That's my understanding of what 2240 is. Am I totally off base?
Yes, and no, you're not totally off base. Sorry. Yes, you're totally.
She was very definitive
oh
about
my
that.
God. Yes,
I
you're
am
on
totally
point.
off base.
You're on point. It was that last question that got me. So but let me give you an example. So the literacy bill is specific around professional development. It's a big component of the literacy bill. So the one section of the bill provide professional development and time for teachers and administrators to attend training related to the curricula. Well, a couple of those positions already in 2240 are literacy type specialists that do the professional development around the science of reading. We also have people who are helping with the dual language strategy and what does ELD instruction look like so there is, but at the same time, not every teacher feels that. So both can be true in a way. But this is the group of people that really are set for helping with professional development, especially around literacy, especially around our math. You probably know our math PA, but the math instruction, the English learning development, PD, all of that comes out of that fund.
So I'm gonna, Robert had his hand up, and then I am also needing a break as well. So I'm gonna suggest that we take Robert's question, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah, it's not so much a question as it is a comment, based a little bit about what was presented to Superintendent Perry a little bit earlier about movement of those teachers. When I was at Myers, I had a teacher who wanted to stay at Myers. However, the union said you cannot move that teacher. He cannot stay at your school unless he gets an approval from his previous school that he was at, because that principal had the rights to take that teacher back. Unfortunately, I was able to convince that principal that he would be better utilized at our school, being with our bilingual program. Now, the second thing is when we're talking about title programs, and this is would cut into the 40 number of schools that we're talking about. If they're title schools, that money is already designed and regulated for what those schools can do with those students. So with that in mind, it's not going to be as much of a burden on the 1.5 million that if we could make that accessible to the remaining schools that aren't title schools.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Okay. I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute break and then come back at 7:35. And at that point, I'm hopeful that we can perhaps move into some motions and see where we are with that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have to walk to an outhouse, so could we make it 10?
Yes, Marty, we can make it 10. 10
Thank you very
minutes,
much.
7:40. Come on back. All right. Welcome back, Budget Committee. Thank you for being so timely. I really appreciate it. And I just want to also say, as we come back together, I just want to thank Superintendent Perry and staff for great insight into the budget, how things are woven together. Budget Committee members, thank you for your creativity and sort of thinking about how can we do what's best and right for children. Really appreciate that, and it sparked some really good discussion. So what I'd like to do now is just actually move us forward into our motion portion of the evening to see if we have a motion, and then we can have further discussion on those motions. I see Nancy, and then I see Ashley.
You want,
I see yes, go ahead, sorry. I saw you first. I don't know who is first, but that's who I saw first, and it could be around position.
so just for the effort of putting something on the table, I would like to move adoption of the budget as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion?
No, Ashley is raising an amendment. Hands are up.
So we've got a motion and a second. And Ashley, did you have a comment on the motion and the second? Or were you wanting to put another motion on the floor?
I would like to propose an amendment.
Okay. Are we up for a friendly amendment, or should we go ahead and take? What would? Okay, Robert's point of order here.
That's what we need. We need that.
Robert's
It doesn't have to be
point of
friendly.
order.
She can make an amendment. She
Yeah.
can make an amendment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be friendly.
Well, true, yes, true. It does.
aggressive.
All right,
heard that, I
Ashley,
won't say
would you like to propose an amendment?
So I would make a motion to approve the 2023-24 proposed budget with a small amendment of directing the superintendent and her team to identify 1.5 million in positions in the non-instruction side of the budget and shift into the instruction side.
Second.
I would like to make another.
How do we track these
I
amendments?
don't know that we can make an amendment and an amendment.
Yeah, I think
Don't
you
we-
need, yeah.
Don't we have to vote on this
Yeah,
amendment
You
and
need to
then
vote on
make
the
another
amendment
amendment?
first and see if
Okay.
you need 8 votes for the
For
amendment.
the amendment, okay. And am I calling the roll?
So
All right.
so we are voting whether to accept the amendment?
Yes.
Madam Chair, point of order.
From-
Yes,
Point of order.
yes, please.
I believe that somebody can amend the amendment, and then from there, you vote and move your way back. I think that's correct, anyway.
So,
My husband
see,
says that's correct, and he's run a lot of meetings, so.
You can amend.
Or we can vote on the amendment that I just made. If it passes, the whole budget passes with the amendment.
Right, but somebody may want to amend your amendment further.
That
And
is true.
so there is this opportunity now to amend your amendment another step.
I can amend the amendment. If I
So we can take
want
the
to place
amendment
that.
and then go,
Amend-
and whether that doesn't pass, then we would go to Ashley's, and if that doesn't pass, then we would come back to
Yeah,
Correct.
that's how. it is.
Nancy's. Okay.
As
Can I-
long as his is amending her
Yes.
motion,
Right.
not
Okay.
amending my motion.
So point of order, because I can't hear your discussion. The amendment that Ashley made really should be to add the 1.5 million or have them look for that, not the part about approving the whole budget, but the part she wants to change. And then if that passed, then you would approve the budget with the change. But then again, somebody still can amend her amendment further. That makes sense, hopefully.
That's what we decided.
okay, I think I think that made sense, and Satya?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make an amendment to the amendment that amount which Director Cottingham suggested should not come from the dual language expansion program, as we want to protect that program.
That's still teaching.
But that dual language expansion program can have teaching and classified staff both attached to it, but it should not come from the program which has here.
But it's in the instruction side of the budget already.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
let
so
me
it doesn't-
finish, and then you all can say you don't want it. But that I would like to ensure that it protects the dual language instruction program, which includes instruction and non-instruction staff, as we are in the process of expanding it. So that can come from another source, but not from this.
And Satya, what friendly explanation, what I'm trying to say is that my amendment would not be, like, while I appreciate your amendment, because we all want to keep that instructional piece of the budget solid, it doesn't have anything to do with my amendment, because I'm talking about the non-instructional side of the budget is where the 1.5 would be looked for.
That is correct.
Right.
Already.
I'm not clear which non-instruction side. There can be non-instructional part of dual language as well, right?
Not the way that, in my understanding, that's not the way the district built the budget.
So point of clarification then, is there any non-instructional specific funding in dual language? I'm getting
Yes,
head
there
nods.
is.
And can
There
you give
is
us an example of what that might be, please?
That's the example like Nancy was giving. The
Mentoring program.
the program assistants that do the training are in the non-instructional
That's what I
side.
was thinking.
And that is what's, if we just go to 2210, I think it is, that is some of the stuff that's at risk. If that, I know you didn't give that as the direction, but that is
Yeah,
the
that's the reason
support
I
side.
want to
Okay.
protect. I don't know if I made it. I'm getting confused. Did I make it clear? that
Okay, I
way?
second your amendment then, Satya.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a second to that amendment,
So we can discuss and then.
and then we'll discuss, and then we'll vote. And Karina?
All right, so for discussion, I guess I have a little bit of follow-up question, because if we are looking at the non-instructional end and recognizing that dual language is embedded right across the budget, at least by how I'm understanding, there are positions and roles and time across the budget, then is it possible to pull 1.5 without impacting any of the dual language expansion? Like, I just want to pose that as, like, is that possible?
I'm not, I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. Because I don't have a clear view of what we would already cut. Because we already took that curriculum department in half by the, when we redid the integrated application, because we were preserving classroom positions. So I'm just not, I just have to, I would do the best I could.
Yeah. And I guess with that, I have a difficult time supporting the amendment as proposed by Satya, you know, since that's where we are right now, given that recognizing that all of the supports that we provided, especially when also when we think about social emotional supports, right, behavioral health supports, classroom supports, a lot of these are, like, they are embedded and they are integrated and they are braided. And so removing from one place impacts other areas. And I, to the extent possible, you know, trust the team and the expertise that has already been placed into the creation of this budget. Like, we're already dipping into contingency to a great depth. So I guess, you know, I'll keep it short, but with that, I won't be supporting the amendment, at least in this first round of votes.
Thank you, Karina. Any other discussion?
Yes. Can I?
Yes.
Chair, thank you very much. I would like to say in support of why I proposed it. This is a very important step we had taken I believe last year. And, you know, it's really important to provide full support for this dual language expansion, two-way dual language expansion, because it just really supports the civil rights of these children, and EEOA standard and Castaneda standard, because if you use a pure equity lens, the EL students were disproportionately scoring low in their literacy outcomes. This has been going on for 2 decades or so. And, we have a largest number of EL students in the state of Oregon. And if you really look at it from equity lens point of view, having that kind of targeted program, sustainability and supporting it through the formative years is very important. Otherwise, what will happen is we kind of build it up and then we will not be able to grow this program. So I really feel we should be intentional in supporting and protect that fledgling program because it's long overdue. And that's the reason I wanted to make sure that we try to find the money from elsewhere, but try to protect that program, which took a lot of effort to build it the way it has to be built, to the true fidelity of that program. Because then it will start helping us with good outcome in other areas, literacy area and everything else. So that's why I would like to please ask our budget committee to please consider protecting the program, whereas look for cost saving from somewhere else.
Thank you, Satya. Is this Marty and then Laura, and discussion related to the mini option on the floor?
Thank you. So I agree that dual language is very important for our kids to be competitive. However, I feel that keeping music and CTE intact are more important. And by just promoting and saving the dual language, I'm afraid we might put these other items in jeopardy, so I will not be able to support it.
Thank you, Marty. And Laura?
Yes, so I just had a question for, I guess, Ashley maybe, or for the general committee. So we're talking about potentially taking the money from, is it classified positions? Is that the correct term that you had mentioned on the?
Non-instructional.
Non-instructional. Now, I know, Christy, you had mentioned that some options were admin positions, the computer rotation, is that right? Edge, and then equity office. What if we looked at taking some of the 1.5 million from one of those categories?
Yeah, I think any of those categories other than Edge would fall under non-instruction.
Oh, okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah, any of them that are directly related to classrooms, which is Edge, would be on the instructional side.
So could you find 1.5 million that is does not impact the dual language program out of the admin, equity office, or computer rotation? Or even Edge?
Yeah, potentially. I'd really want to look at the gap, gosh, how do I say this? The intricacies between all of them to do what we do, because the other thing I'm going to also do at the same time is look forward to how we close that gap for next year. So I'll do both at the same time.
Well, I just, for the record, do support Ashley's proposal.
We're going to go to Nancy and then Osvaldo.
Osvaldo, you can go first, then I'll go. I've talked too much.
Oh,
and Ashley.
Ashley.
I'll be last.
If we can clarify the non-instruction as either like administrative positions and maybe operations or facilities around those areas, they're truly not impacting direct services, impact to student services, I'd be okay with that. I am not okay with any funds being taken out of the equity office as well. So that would just be something I want to share.
Great, thank you. Ashley?
I just second what Osvaldo just said. I would assume if this passed, which who knows, that the district would be using an equity lens in making this decision like they have in making this proposal to us already, and truly looking for what positions could be moved that are more centralized back into the classrooms to support the kids most in need. That's my intent in proposing this small amendment to a very large budget.
Great. And Maria, and then Nancy.
I just wanted to, just bring up, mostly because within me as being someone that like works on the back end of a very public-facing like organization, a lot of the times, while it doesn't necessarily feel like certain positions are directly impacting our students, they are. And so that's why I'm very apprehensive about supporting these amendments, because every single position of admin, guidance counselor, security specialist, they do ultimately end up supporting teachers and students, and the idea is to have a school district that can come together to support all of our students. And I just worry that cutting from one place, specifically like non-instruction, would also end up being to our detriment in the long run.
Thank you, Maria. Nancy?
That essentially is what I wanted to say. Exactly. And it feels really difficult to vote against protecting dual language because I think we all value it. But we're asking for a change. And I think it's short-sighted of us to think that there are easy places to find any amount of money in this budget that will not have ultimate impact on students, on staff, on all the classrooms.
All right. Well, if there's no further discussion, we will call for a vote. And the motion on the table is something to the effect of adopting the budget with direction to the district to look at an allocation of 1.5. Yeah.
We have to vote on the dual language protection first.
Right, which is the one. Okay, okay.
You want to vote on Satya's amendment?
We're going to vote on Satya's amendment to protect the dual language.
Real quick point of order. Do I get a vote or no?
Pardon?
Do I get a vote? Doesn't
No,
seem like
he
it.
gets to discuss.
Okay. Just double checking. Just want to make sure I can vote.
And you're also doing an approval, not adoption, so just,
Great, thank you. All right. Osvaldo Avila.
No on this amendment.
Ashley Carson Cottingham.
Yes.
Satya Chandagiri.
Yes.
Barbara Guillot. Is she still with us by phone?
She is, if she can log on. I've been talking to her, texting with her. She's texting me, but she's unable to connect or speak.
Yes, yes.
There she
yes.
is.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, and thank you for
Sorry.
being here. Karina.
No. Can't support this amendment.
Lisa Harnish. No. Marty Hyen.
No.
Maria Hinos Pressy.
No.
Nancy McMorris Addicks.
No.
And Oni is not here. Laura Million.
Yes.
Oscar Pereiras.
Horace, no. Thank you.
And Robert Salazar.
No.
And according to my calculations, yeses had 4 and nos had 8. Correct. So it did not carry. That motion did not carry.
So we go to the second.
Great, so we'll now go
Ashley's
to
motion.
Ashley's motion. All right, so now we'll take Ashley's motion. And Ashley, if you'd like to repeat it, you may.
Okay, let's see. To approve the 2023-24 proposed budget with an amendment instructing the superintendent to identify 1.5 million worth of FTE in the non-instructional side of the budget and reallocate the FTE to the instructional side of the budget with maximum flexibility to the district to determine where the positions go based on need with an equity lens.
Point of order.
Yes, Marty?
I'm pretty sure that her amendment should not include the first sentence, which was to approve the budget. With that change, it should just be about the change.
It's about the change.
And then that's either pass or fail, and then whatever we have left, the whole budget, we
Go with the budget. Great, absolutely, thank you.
I think it works either way, doesn't it, in Robert's rules? Because if this fails, then we go to the base motion.
With
which-
the base
And
motion.
then we don't have to vote twice, but.
I know the expert behind me is saying no, I'm sorry, Ashley, that we really should do it twice.
Also not the rules chair for the
Yeah.
school board.
Me either, and thank you, Marty, for that. So we'll vote on the motion as proposed.
Chair,
Yes.
I have a point of order. Director Carson, are you stating that if this gets passed, does the district then already make those decisions before coming to the board? Or would that have to be presented and then we take a vote on it again? This 1.5 allocation?
I mean, we may want to ask council after the fact, but I feel like the way I've made the motion gives maximum flexibility to the district to make those decisions, which they may want to bring back to the board for final adoption. But I don't know if legal counsel's there, wants to weigh in. I might be
They are not here.
Yeah, and I think it gives us the flexibility, and then we would, even if we couldn't get it into the budget document in time at the time of adoption by the board, we'd share with you any of those changes. So an adoption comes on June 13th.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to call the roll.
Can we do discussion?
Oh, sorry, I didn't do discussion. Sorry, I thought we were.
Can I ask?
If I may go for discussion.
Yes, Karina, and then Satya.
I guess I wanted maybe point of clarity for the Ashley's. Are we specifying? I think I heard earlier that, and we're not stating it in this motion, where that 1.5 million would move towards. Like, are we saying allocating that specifically to, what was it like? Is it like instruction, anything in instruction?
That was what my motion is. Yeah, ultimate flexibility. What I said when I raised it originally was I know there's a lot of challenges in wanting our K through 2 classrooms to be small. I've heard from the budget committee it feels like a priority for a number of people, but I also know through our work on the board for the last 2 years, we've heard a lot about the challenges in middle school classroom sizes. We've heard a lot about challenges in our special ed classrooms and other specialized classrooms. And so it's simply a proposal to put more resources back in the classroom, but delegating all the authority and decision-making back to the district.
Okay.
Thank you for the
All right,
clarification.
you bet. And was there Nancy?
I will probably support this, though I want to be clear that this is, I think, an effort to make this body feel better and that the impact on students will be so minimal. But that's my thinking. It's so tiny in its impact in the size of our district. But it is something you can hang your hat on and say, look, we're trying. But I just want to be clear that I understand that's all it is.
Thank you. I agree. Isaac and then Satya.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along those same lines. This does seem very small, and I don't think performative is the right word, but just like we're doing something. I want to just earlier, Christy, you gave some like initial impressions. Like if we take it out of here, we're most likely going to take from here and here and here. Like if we were to do this, do you have any thoughts off the top of your head of where the money might come from, or is that something that we'll just have to figure out down the road?
Oops, I have some ideas. I don't know if they're quite ready for prime time yet, because I was already thinking of some of those ideas related to the budget cliff we're facing. So in my mind, I was already thinking we've got to make some district cuts to make this budget work. So now that in my mind is double. So you're talking about 1.5. I'm thinking about 3 million because I don't want to leave this sort of a cliff for next year. And that's what I'm most worried about is the cliff we're facing. That the 1.5 million, yes, we can do it, but we've, already cut half the curriculum staff. So we're trying to both do what's right in the moment and forecast for next year. So that's why I'm struggling to answer it, because I'm thinking, how do we not make the cliff so huge next year?
And just kind of continue on that same line, I just want to verbalize kind of, I think, where we've gone as a board, starting last week when we had, or 2 weeks ago, I'm losing track of time. They all kind of run together, unfortunately. But
Senior year.
Yeah, senioritis, it's all in my head, no. But I feel like a couple members of the board did mention wanting to reduce class sizes. I think that kind of met like a practical barrier, like it's just, that's not very easy to do. And so I don't know, I feel like now we're just kind of shifting towards, okay, can we like just do this one little push to make ourselves feel good? And I'm wondering if this is going to do more harm than good in terms of throwing a curveball at the district last second while they're already preparing for like other things. Because I know in the budget, of course, we all want the best for students. Is this really going to have an impact doing the best for students, or is this just going to move some things around, create some hassle, and make us look better, or whatever that might be? Like, I don't know. Is this really worth it? And so if you want to weigh in on that, Christy,
Well, anytime you put any more dollars directly to students, but it's hard to know on the other side how this impact over here does impact. So I want to go back to what Maria says, that every place in the organization, the goal is about how do you do what's best for students. So is it and I'll just think of examples. Does it make it less able to do more shading? Does it give less able to do at the bargaining table? Is it less able to have clean classrooms? Is it less, XYZ? And so that's the hard part, to really weigh impact, and it's really small. And I'm thinking about how do you get to 54 million in reductions, and that'll come out of classrooms. Yeah. So the dollars we save this year help us save classrooms for next year, even though I agree I want it to be all the way out to classrooms as much as possible. So that's my worry.
Marty and then Satya.
So Superintendent Perry, I'm kind of curious for your guesstimate at the staff resources and time to go back through this to look for that additional money.
Well, it's easily, because we try to make decisions as a team, it's usually 5 of us plus the fiscal office to cost. And so when you make those sorts of decisions as a team, they take longer. So I think we're at several hours of executive level time, let alone the budget office. And the budget office then has to redo the budget book as well. But that's all, it is part of the process.
Right. Okay, thank you. So as much as I would like more money in the classrooms, I probably won't be able to support this.
Thank you. And Satya and then Ashley.
Well, this process kind of makes all of us feel good, but I'm wondering in terms of what is the tangible outcome you're going to see at the end of next year. I worry that it'll make us feel good today, but we are not going to see much outcome. That's the reason I really want to know, before we commit to this, if we can be very clear where this additional instructional time will go and what areas it'll come out of, so that we can have least amount of impact, negative impact. Because otherwise it's just like saying in such a big organization, move it from here to there. I'm sure if you save a few retirement positions you don't fill, you can get $1.5 million. But that's not going to make a tangible difference in terms of programmatic development or closing the equity ladder if you want to see the gap in an intentional manner. Because, like last year we had 280 resignations. That would have saved us close to $1.5 million. But it's not a sustainable plan. So I really want to know how this 1.5 million, where it will go. Are we going to go towards next crisis, or is it going to be a sustainable planned development as we go through, so that we can stay focused, whether it's going towards STEM education or whatever program you want, but in a way that we can nurture it to grow despite all the background challenges we are having. Otherwise, it'll be like a drop in the bucket in this place. Still, we're going to see the cuts next year. It's not going to make a difference in the cuts next year. So I'm really curious, we're just going to spend the $1.5 million, or are we intentionally trying to add to at least save some programs which have the highest return on investment? And I hate to lose any position, but this is the reality we're facing.
So I don't think there's an answer to that.
I wish I had that answer.
Yeah, right. There's no crystal ball in that. So, Ashley.
Thank you. So I guess I would just hope we can vote on this soon. I think the role of a budget committee is to put forward ideas. That's why we've been brought together. If this amendment fails, it fails. I don't think $1.5 million is a drop in the bucket. I think that we've been asked if we want to prioritize resources to find it somewhere else in the budget and not dip into reserves. So this is my best attempt at looking for positions that are not in the classroom being shifted to the classroom. And I would make, I don't know, the assumption that if we have to cut $54 million out of our budget next year, we're going to be looking at non-classroom positions first. And so to me, having 15 FTE move and teach in classrooms across the districts for the next year could really make an impact on one or many kids' lives. And so while it is small in terms of a $1 billion, 1.3 or $4 billion budget at this point, it is a step towards reducing class size, and it is a step towards having more educators working directly with students in the classroom. We've heard it as a major priority from labor and from parents for the last 2 years. And so it's a minor proposal to shift some positions. Nobody loses their job and people have more classroom time.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, I'd like to call for a vote. So I'll call the roll. Osvaldo?
Yes.
Ashley Carson-Cottingham? Sorry, I should be doing full names.
Yes.
Satya Chandagiri?
Yes, please.
Barbara Gio?
She dropped from the call.
Did she drop? Okay. Karina?
Yes.
Lisa?
That's you.
I know it's me.
It's really hard.
Oh.
It's hard.
I'm going to go for yes. Marty? Hyen?
I'm going to have to go for no. And yes, Lisa, it is hard, but that's why you get paid the big bucks, right? To make those decisions.
All $0. Maria Hinoz-Pressy?
No.
Nancy McMorris-Addox?
Yes.
Laura Million?
Yes.
Oscar Porras,
Yes.
Robert Salazar,
Yes.
and I believe I've called through everybody. And according to my calculations, we have 9 yeses and 2 nos.
Point of order.
Yes.
I made a motion, and I have a more complete motion to read for the adoption of, or the approval of the whole budget, so I'd like to read that now.
Okay.
It is it essentially is the motion I made before, but I have some more complete language that has to be used. Be it moved on May 22nd, 2023, that the Budget Committee of the Salem-Keizer School District 24J32, Marion Polk Counties, Oregon, approves the proposed budget as amended by the Budget Committee for the 2023-24 fiscal year in the amount of, I should have practiced, $1,275,766,321, and approves property taxes for the 2023-24 fiscal year at the rate of 4.5210 per thousand of assessed value for the permanent tax rate levy in support of the general fund, and in the amount of $65,614,869 for the general obligation bonds levy.
You can breathe.
Good job, Nancy.
Nice job.
I
Give you a
second that. A second.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. Marty, you have your hand up.
Is the tax rate the same as last year?
I have no idea.
Well, I'm asking the superintendent. Sorry, Nancy. Yeah, I know you don't have any idea.
I'm looking at our director of finance and see if,
Our permanent rate is the same, and the general obligation bond is based on the debt service due for the year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions,
Discussion.
discussion, comments? All right, I'm going to call the roll. Osvaldo Avila,
Yes.
Ashley Carson Cottingham,
Yes.
Satya Chandagiri,
Yes, please.
Barbara Gio is gone, Karina Gutzman Ortiz?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Lisa Harnish, yes. Marty Hyen,
Yes.
Maria Hinos Pressy,
Yes.
Nancy McMorris Addicks,
Yes.
Laura Million,
Yes.
Oscar Perez.
Horace.
Horace, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
And Robert Salazar.
Yes.
All right. So that should give us a unanimous vote of yes, everyone. All right,
Congratulations.
we did it. All right,
Can I, another point of order?
yes.
I think that for some people on this budget committee, this is their last meeting of the budget committee.
Yes, it is.
And I would like to acknowledge the service of those people who are retiring. Lisa, I think the other people who are retiring are no longer here. And I would also like to point out that I believe it could be Superintendent Perry's last budget committee meeting. Don't cry, don't cry.
oh, oh my gosh, just a sec, just a sec. I'm tearing up a little bit.
Marty Hines also last.
Oh, and Marty's last
yeah.
budget
That's
committee
right.
meeting. She
That's
still has
right.
board meetings, though, so you're not off the hook yet.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you, everybody. And Isaac, best of luck to you, and Raylan's already gone, but thank you for your service as well.
You did a good job.
All right, well, thank you. You're very gracious. You're very gracious. All right, so I'll call our meeting to an end.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.